Hey, ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome again today to another edition of our Racism Talk. Get your knee off our necks. And today we have a very dynamic expert, a social worker by profession, a psychologist by profession. And I am so glad to have today Freshia Wanjiku. And she's going to be talking today on the effect of racism on storytelling and history. Before we continue our conversation today, ladies and gentlemen, I will encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube page, the Sampon Global TV. That is a space where we meet together, we have diverse programs, we exchange, and of course, our intention in all of our programs is to inspire ourselves so that we can become instruments of change and not only change to transform our lives and of course our environment. It is amazing that it is with the death of George Floyd on the 25th of May 2020 that the whole world got to realize again that we were living in a world full of discrimination, racism, and segregation in all sorts and all kinds of ways. And so we took upon ourselves to continue the conversation for 11 years now. We have been working on the topic of racism. When I talk about we, I mean some on social service, some on social service is a social institution and a recognized body for children and youth. And so we do diverse programs, diverse activities for children, for youth, for families, and we offer social work to migrants living in Germany. But that's not all. Of course, we also work with the Agenda 2063, and our attention is, of course, or our interest is, of course, to meet and to support the Agenda 2063 and to achieve the Africa we want. And who else should create this Africa if not you and me? So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy that you're here. I can see you watching wherever you're watching from indicates. I salute you all watching from the YouTube. I salute you also watching on Facebook. Forward the links to your friends. Remember, this is our space. This is your platform. This is my platform. We come here every Thursday at 7 p.m. German time, GMT plus 2, to discuss, to exchange, have difficult conversation on racism, and of course with the intention that we get healed in the process of exchanging. And if after we have been healed, of course we want to take actions, positive actions for change and transformation, so that we be liberated from the oppressed mentality. And of course, it's not only about the oppressed, it's also about the oppressor. This platform is also a means to speak to the oppressor, that they understand that we know that there is a kind of privilege mentality going on. Today, my guest is so amazing and understands the privileges that we all have. Remember, Mandela once said he is fighting not only against the white supremacy, but also against the black supremacy. And therefore, he makes us understand that the privileges we are talking about, it's not only on the side of the white man, but remember, we also had, like Malcolm X once said, the oppressed slaves who were in the home, so the domestic slaves. So the domestic slaves are those that got all the privileges, are oppressed, but having the mindset of the oppressor. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome with me our guest today, Freshia Wanjiku. Wanjiku, you're welcome. You have to turn your mic,
Thank you.
you have to turn your phone,
Yes.
you have to adjust your phone.
Yes.
So you are welcome, Fish. You're welcome. So how are
Thanks
you
a lot.
today?
I'm very okay. I'm okay. Yeah.
It's a privilege to have you today. I know that it's always very hard for people who are very, very busy, but I'm so glad that you took time out of the busy schedule to be with us today. So, how has work been today?
Yeah, busy, but okay. But it's good weather, so it's a good day.
You know, I was very happy when you told me you did social works, and I said, "Oh, so we are colleagues somehow." And then you proceeded and said, "I also psychologist," and I was like, "Wow!" So we are having already a lot of similarities. Today we are talking about the effect of racism on storytelling and history. I give all of my guests, the special guests, 15 minutes to talk about their topics, and then I ask them questions. Ma'am, this is your platform. Tell us, what is the effect of racism on storytelling and history? You're welcome again.
So thank you very much. I'm not really an expert on this, but I have done a lot of research and a lot of reading on this topic. That's why I wanted to talk about this topic. I will start with the effect of racism on history, and then come to storytelling as on the last part. The history of Africa as we know it today was hugely documented, interpreted, and told by other people. These historians or missionaries, traders, and explorers were considered the authorities on the subject. Therefore, the representation of African events, characters, was done by non-Africans. And this in a lot of instances helped to create a negative portrayal of Africa. And this is what I call the dark narratives. And we all have heard of the dark narratives. Where you then the savages, the communities that fight with each other, a continent where there's only war and darkness and rampage and not negative things. And like Chinua Achebe said, that the history of the hunt will always glorify the hunter as long as the lions don't have their own writers. How come that our history was written by other people? This is because the history of Africa relied on written evidence. Most Western societies regarded the methodology that we used before the Westerners came to Africa. Our methodology of history was storytelling. Therefore, an older generation would have a set of stories of about things that happened, about our great leaders, about events that took place, and they would tell these stories, and they would be told and retold to generations forward. But when the Westerners came to Africa, they decided, okay, this is not a trustworthy methodology. Only what is written. If it's not written, it didn't happen. Therefore, that's where you see the writings from missionaries, from explorers, from all the people who came as new people, writing about us, while looking with the eyes, with the glasses of the Western world. So there you got what you don't understand must be crazy. If you see a certain ritual, a certain way of life, then it must be backward because it doesn't fit what you think is the way of life that it should be from the perspective of the Western person. Now, that's where this kind of writings continued. You can find early writings with Greece, where young people from Greece went to the shores of Libya, and Herodotus, the person who we think is the father of history, writes that they met dwarfs, magical dwarfs. So, and these are supposed to be Africans, and so the narrative of hate, of ugliness, was spread from very early time, and it has continued to this day, because with the it has been used also by other generations that came after, like in colonialism, in slavery, and in all the other things. Like Dr. Livingstone said, we are bringing to Africa the three C's: civilization, Christianity, and commerce. We had our own commerce, we had our own religions, but by saying this, he gave a right to the subjugation of the African people, because they need to be tamed. and this kind of things have continued with the written media, and thereafter with television and with the films and all these kind of things. Now, that is the history. And then I come to the storytelling, where the storytelling comes in. Storytelling was our own way of telling our story before the new methodology of history that is written. But today, in the world we are living in, there comes a place where, again, storytelling is very important. Why is this? At this moment, we are divided in two extremes. The extreme of the privileged and the underprivileged. The extreme of the racist and the victim. But storytelling is a universal human way, which is accepted by almost all communities, through which we can learn, maintain our culture, community, and bridge the collective realities within our individual experiences. Stories are analytical tools with which we can unpack and dismantle racism. How do we do this? First of all, we already have stories, the stories that have been written. These stories, I call them stock stories. These are the stories that try to explain the racial dynamics in a way that supports the status quo, the lazy Africa, the American dream. So if you don't reach this dream, there must be something wrong with you. An African must be lazy. So if he doesn't get his job or loses his job, it's because he's lazy. And these are stories that have been told and retold, and somehow in our own subconscious, they have become a part of our society. And it reaches a point that you can be telling this story, this stereotype story, and nobody can challenge the authority of validity of it. A lot of people will say Africans are lazy, but people will laugh about it. Or somebody will say, if you don't achieve the American dream, you must be dumb. Everybody will laugh about it or accept it as it is. But because in this way, we perpetuate the stereotypes while absolving the storyteller of the racism involved. So these stories are always there, but we can tell another kind of story, because the problem with the stock stories is that is a single story. So as my favorite storyteller, Adichie Chimanada says, there's no single story by anybody. The story of the immigrant who comes here and finds life amazing, travels, learns different languages and cultures, has a broad view of the world. And you have the other story of an immigrant who has a loss of grief, that is not resolved, who misses the world where the person was raised, who thinks will never fit in this society. All these stories, they have truth in them. They are not fake stories. But the only problem with this is that they don't bring people together, because there are elements of truth in both stories, but the problem, neither of them has room for nuance and complexity. So, for example, this person who cannot adjust, we have not yet given the person the space and the room to be able to tell the backstory, the complexity, the nuances, to put the story in context. So it's easier to say, okay, because this person has not been able to integrate or to act with the society, there must be something wrong with them. But that's not true. And therefore, we come to the concealed stories. These are stories that give a broader perspective. These are the stories where you can see the resilience, the grief, the belonging, the empowerment of that person, even though the person has a lot of hindrances. And the good thing about storytelling is that when you tell a story, it gives room for empathy. It gives room for shared experiences, that the other is not just a failure, the other is not just a bad person, the other is not just a person who cannot adapt, but you come to live in their space, to understand their space, to know what has put them there. And then we have the resistance stories. These are the stories that were never told about our forefathers who resisted slavery, who resisted colonialism, but also today about the people who have refused to accept the status quo, about the people who have refused to accept that you put me in a box and I will stay in that box. These are the resistance stories. And then the transforming stories. And the transforming stories are the stories of the present, of us in our different ways, relationships, boundaries. They are the stories of where I can say that I will use my skills and do well wherever I live. These are the stories where we take our background, our past, and use it to find a niche that works for us in an adult third culture society. So in short, about storytelling, what I would like to say is that the strongest message is to own our story, to walk inside that story and not let others write it for us. And because you either walk inside your story and you own it, or stand outside your story and hustle for your worthiness. So it's very, very important that we learn this new way of telling our story, and listening to the stories of others. And in this way, I think we can beat racism, because the minute somebody knows you are just not a foreigner, you are not just somebody to be scared of, you are not just somebody coming to steal jobs, but you have you are more than that. You are more than a caricature of what has been always printed, of the dumb, of the violent, of the savage, but you are human. If you can't tell your story, I think this is a space where we can all come together and beat racism. So that was my presentation on the topic.
Thank you so very much. An amazing presentation, amazing story. I paraphrase for those who are just coming. If you're just coming in, this is Sompon Social Service, and we're working together with the Sompon Global TV. The Sompon Global TV is a medium in which we're using to tell our own story by our own people, for our own people, so that we can have the transformative narrative, like Free just said. And of course, Sampo Social Service is a social organization, institution to support migrants and all migrants, and of course, human beings living in Germany and abroad. So thank you for being here. I'm seeing Mama Osas is here. I appreciate you for being here. Thank you for watching from YouTube. Continue to share the link with your friends, because I think this is an amazing conversation today, and we're going to learn the new order instrument and methodology. Frey, in our conversation and what you just presented, you made us understand that the storytelling is a methodology that most Africans have been using for the very past years and for many, many years. And therefore,
Yes.
when the Western came to Africa, they considered that it was an old method that wasn't effective for them and to them. What is effective is what is written down, so they could write down and write our stories for us. And therefore, they promoted the hate narrative, and that's why they thought that they brought a civilization, Christianity, and commerce. They forgot that before they came, the Africans got their own Christianity and their own religion. And then you went further to explain the importance of storytelling, and you said that storytelling gives room for exchange of experiences. So when we share our stories, we give space to learn from one another. You mentioned the fact that there were resistance stories that were never told, and these resistance stories are the stories of people who refuse to be put into a box, who refuse the hate narrative, who say no, they can do all things and they're able also to do because they're well able, and refuse the fact that they are ugly, and all the stories that the hate narrative portrays. And then you said again a very important one, the transformative, transforming story. I found that very, very exciting because it concerns us now. You said the stories of the present, and therefore we should use the skills that we use the skills that we have to make the best out of it and to influence lives. Um, Thank you very much for this vivid presentation. And in your presentation, I had some few questions, and would like to ask you the question. Before then, I want also said something. She mentioned the fact that I think she got you wrongly somehow, and she said, um, "Sorry, you mean the in the Western world story are being told in difference to bring the African down." I think you're the same point of view with her, that
Yes.
right.
Yes. Yeah. The Western narrative was used was more to make us look worse, dark and savagely, and yes.
Exactly. So, Osas or Stefani she's in the same point of view with you, the Western story, and that's why we are talking about storytelling, the instrument of storytelling. And when you were talking, Frame, I have been working for the past 12 years now with the organization, and we do social works, and we support other migrant organizations to also stand their grounds. And I observe one thing in this milieu. I work with a lot of European and German institutions, so I'm like president in many white privilege and good organizations, so to say. And I observe one thing: they always complain that the migrants don't know how to write their
Yeah.
project, and they always complain that migrants don't know how to document. And I always found this very, very challenging because, and of course, somehow, when you go to the migrant organization and tell them, put your story on the paper, document your story so that it has a piece of paper. It has a concept and a structure, and only so, if at all you want to get financial support from them, can you get support. So again, just to confirm to what you said, because the storytelling of just telling the story, I want to do this, and just go doing it without writing it, is of maybe for us today a disadvantage. So what do you think about it, and how can we help? Let's go to from human beings to now to institutions. How can we actually help these organizations that have amazing jobs? I see a lot of them doing mighty things, great works, but they fail to use the new methodology of writing and documenting their works so that it fits into the community or into the society, the Western society in which they are living. How can we help them?
I think it's a place of the few people, a few of us, or many of us, I don't know, who are privileged to work in these organizations. There are very many, very many people I have met of Africans descent who are holding nice jobs, who know all these things. It's up to us to mentor people, to help our own people to be able to learn these things. Because if you don't have somebody who shows you the way, then you are still behind. So it's up to us who came earlier, people who have that luck, who have got that luck that you are working in institutions where you use these methodologies and these kind of things, that we mentor the newcomers, and also people or organizations that are trying their best to come up.
That's a good point. Um, I spoke to one organization. We wanted to win them so that we can better help them, and we had
Yeah.
personally had a challenge with them because they said no, they didn't want to change anything because they had in mind again these narratives of the Westerns that the Western always wants to impose in them. So they were on air, they were not willing to adjust at that point. So my question is, how do we recognize the moment we must have to adjust so that we also become one of those privileged people and make use of those privileges, especially in documentation and adjustment for the
Yes.
better?
I always say, like, when you try something and it's not working, just ask. There are a lot of people willing to help. And again, in Chinua Achebe's book, there's this bird that says, since men have learned to shoot without
Mhm.
missing, I've learned
Mhm.
to fly without patching. You have to be flexible. You have to adapt to the situation where you are in the country you are in, and in the society you are in. You have to try these maneuvers, to do these maneuvers in able to reach where you want to be.
I like that word. You have to try these maneuvers
Yeah.
in order to reach where you want to go. And in your presentation, you also mentioned something. You said we have to own our stories. Now,
Yes.
my question is, how do we effectively own our own stories?
Um, uh, Let me think about that one. How do we own our stories?
Yes.
We um,
Because you spoke about the
you,
media, you spoke about films, you spoke about the TV
yes.
that the Western brought, and that has distorted our own narratives. So
Yes.
how can we now own our own story, especially when we are living in the transforming generation?
Yeah, we are lucky that we are living in this generation where there are a lot of media openings for us. Like before, for somebody who lived here in the 50s or the 60s, if he
Mhm,
wanted to tell their story, they would have to go to a television station
mhm,
or a newspaper. And
mhm,
they got that chance, it would be very difficult. But
mhm,
now, from your own telephone, from your own computer, from your social media, you can be able to tell your story. So
mhm,
we are lucky that we are living in a society where we can pull these resources, use these resources that are open to us to tell our story, to give out the story of the hardworking African, the civil African, the successful African, and also
mhm,
about our countries, the successful. When I was growing up, If I knew a country, I would know an African country due to the bad things that I've heard in the radio. For example, I would hear, oh, this country is full of famine or war. But today I can go on my computer and search that country and see beautiful people who can dance very well, who have beautiful buildings, who have architectural things that I wouldn't believe that would exist in Africa. So we have all the media, and we can use that media, I think.
Thank you so very much. I want to welcome again all our guests, and we have also Charity Warimo, and she's saying that fantastic, like the breakdown. I like the breakdown. The individual story must be told because it educates the ordinary, ignorant person about Africa. Many still view Africa as one country. Please expound.
Yes, that's true.
So, how can our stories and our individual stories help them really see? And I mean, this time I'm talking about the oppressors because we're talking about the oppressed and we're talking about the oppressors. So, how can we, through our individual stories, educate the oppressor to understand that Africa is not a country but a continent with 54 countries?
Yeah, I think is like I said, when you start with storytelling, when you start with your story, you create a space where somebody is willing to listen. So I will not start with like, you must be not educated to think that Africa is one country. But if I can start with my story, from where I come from which side of Africa it is, in relationship with the whole of Africa, then in this way, we are able to go into dialogue and also to find out why the person, because I always say, I don't have a problem with people who talk. If somebody tells me, oh, I thought Africa is one country, that is my moment to teach the person. I would rather that person than the person who thinks, yeah, it's just one country and doesn't say anything. So that is an opportunity of teaching, and not only teaching about the 54 countries, but also the greatness of each of the 54 countries, because all the 54 countries are great countries with a lot of great things.
Thank you so much. Amazing. I welcome you all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching. Those watching on YouTube, I really, really appreciate you. Thank you for your devotion. Thank you to you also watching on Facebook. You are all amazing. I want to thank you also for being here. Don't forget to subscribe. This platform is your platform. And just like Charity Warimo is proposing, we ought to support each other's forum. And I think that this is your forum and this is my forum. We have to support one another. And this is the only way that we can actually beat racism. What do you think, Frey? Tell us more about supporting each other.
Yeah, I think that's the secret. Actually, that is the secret. Long time ago, in the Western world here in Europe, they used to fight each other. The Spaniards would come and attack the Dutch. The Dutch would attack the Belgians. Then the Scandinavians, the Vikings would go and attack each other until a moment came when they realized, if we work together, we will achieve more. And that's when they stopped attacking each other. They stopped stealing from each other. And they came together to go and get Africa, to go and get America, to go and get Australia. Working together, they were able to reach shores that were very far. While when they were attacking each other's ships, they were just doing it at the Mediterranean Sea and around Europe. So, and Northern Sea. So it's very important. That is the secret. Working together, you reach far.
Thank you so much. And this takes me, thank you for bringing us again to history. It's the working together that provoked the African Berlin history in 1884, 1885, where Bismarck coordinated that African Berlin history. And just like you said, they really had to work together strategically because they were already fighting one another and they were hurting one another. So they came up with a strategy: before we beat ourselves, hit ourselves, hurt ourselves, let us strategically work together. So my question will be, because most of my panelists, everyone has come here always say we have to work together. My question to you: are there specific ways we can really strategically work together to empower ourselves? Do you have any specific tips on how the African community, the Africans, can really work together consistently to help one another and to grow?
I think there are different ways. We can come with regional groups, with gender groups, but most important, maybe we should look at different expertise. Like there are people, we have people who are very good in banking. If we could follow, make a group of those people, and then people like us can go for information there. And then like people who are good in something else, make also something, a forum or something, whereby if I need something, I know where to go. I think that would be a good idea.
This takes me again. I wanted to highlight this point again with the German institutions that I really I'm very involved with them. We have, I won't call names, but I'm a president of one of the institutions, and these are big institutions of the social work in Germany. And you know what they do? There are 8 of them or 9 of them. They come together, and when they come together, they negotiate amongst themselves. Like
Yes.
the Germany says, okay, we want to have migration counseling. Like we offer migration
Yes.
counseling. So Germany says want to have migration counseling. So the organization for which I am the president, we sit there on board, president at the regional level, not at the national level, at the regional level. We sit there together. The other organizations are there, and we really negotiate. So we say, okay, you have been in this field for long. Maybe you have 10 places, and then I take 2 places.
Yes. Yeah.
And they come together, they really sit on the table. They are
Yeah.
competitors that are
Yeah.
sitting on the table, and they are
Yes.
discussing. At this point, they are not discussing about emotions, if you know better or you don't know better. They are
Yeah.
really discussing on how to get their best, and they are open and direct on that, and
Yes.
transparent. And
Yeah.
oftentimes I have told most of the some people I have come across that there's a lot of gains if we understand these principles and make use of them. You know, I know
Yes.
5 organizations that are 5 good friends, and the
Mm-hmm.
one takes a contract, gives it to the
Mm-hmm.
other one, and the other one takes a contract, gives it to the other one. So they're just
Yes.
amongst them, and you think there are
Mm.
5 companies, but actually there are 5 friends who just created 5 different organizations. The world
Yes.
sees them as 5 different organizations, but behind there are 5 solid networkers working together, taking all the market. And I question myself time and again. Even when I bring that to our people and I explain that to them, I have the impression that they think there's something you want to get out of it. That's why you're bringing it. How do we overcome this low mindset?
Really, the answer to that, I really don't know. Maybe just talking, just explaining again and again and again how things work, and giving with examples of the big companies, because like what you said is really true. I know a lot of some companies here where actually they are private companies, and they manufacture some things I don't want to mention,
Yes,
and
don't.
and the shops are next to each other, and
Yes.
people go to one shop and they say here is expensive, they go to the other shop, or the other way around. But I know the owner is one person.
Exactly. Exactly.
So it's important that we learn how this system works, and apply it to ourselves and our country people.
I like that last phrase. It's important that we understand how the system works and be able to make use of it. That takes me to my next question. Um, you already said it again, but I just want you to be more precise. Um, we are told that there is only one race, and
Yes.
that all race originated from Mother Africa and the
Yeah.
black woman. How true is
Mhm.
this narrative? And why is it very less spoken about or less spoken of?
um yes. I am of the school that thinks that actually we are of the same race.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the story about different races was
Mm-hmm.
made with an intention of manipulation,
Mm-hmm.
of exploitation,
Mm-hmm.
of racism. Because
Mm-hmm.
once I tell you somebody is something else, he's not human like you, he doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have feelings like you, he's not
Mm-hmm.
capable like you, then
Mm-hmm.
it's very easy for you to accept if I do
Mm-hmm.
something wrong to that person.
Mm-hmm.
And we see it even happening today. If you call somebody a terrorist, it's
Mm-hmm.
okay to bomb them and their children.
Mm-hmm.
But if I told you those are human beings,
Mm-hmm.
their mothers and fathers, they want the same like me, then it's difficult to accept that you go and bomb them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the story of the different races and different kind of people, that was just a story to preserve the status quo. And
Mm-hmm.
today, with the scientific things that we have, like DNA testing and those kind of things,
Mm-hmm.
the good thing is that we have been able to realize that actually we are all the same race.
Mm-hmm.
Our differences are less than the differences of all apes together.
Mm-hmm.
And except for the identical twins,
Mm-hmm.
all the other human beings have
Mm-hmm.
the same genes with very slight variations.
Wow.
And
Mm-hmm.
not only that, with RNA, DNA, you
Mm-hmm.
can see that all people originated from Africa
Mm-hmm.
and later migrated to different latitudes
Mm-hmm.
that accepted different mutations were advantageous if you
Mm-hmm.
lived in the middle of near equator. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's good when you have dark skin. It helps you against the cancer and
Mm-hmm.
such things. And when you are living in very cold climates, other kind of skin is needed. So, but
Mm-hmm.
other than that, we are of the same race. We are the same human beings, and
Mm-hmm.
we are valuable. We are, all of us are of the same value.
Mm-hmm. All of us are of the same value. Now that we know all of us are of the same value, how can we practically, step by step, help someone to become an anti-racist?
Yes, I thought about about that, and I think there are a number of things. One of the things is by educating others and ourselves about racism.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, racism, for some people, is very clear what racism is. To some
Mm-hmm.
other people, it's not as clear because they don't live near people like me.
Mm-hmm.
They have not seen what happens. So education is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is picking up when we observe racist acts.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to happen to me, but
Mm-hmm.
if I see it happening or hear it happening, I have to speak up against
Mm-hmm.
it. Another thing is working very hard to eliminate racist policies and practices, because those are the biggest problem. I think I'm not scared if somebody shouts at me or talks bad about me because I'm an African, but it doesn't have power to change my life. But when the policies and practices are racist, then is a big problem, because they have the power to change your life. And that's the problem with America. If a policeman can just shoot you, then there's a big problem. But if a policeman can maybe hate me because I'm Black and takes me to court, and the court says, no, that is rubbish, then it's okay. So I think eliminating the policies and practices, that is a big thing. And another thing is offering people the opportunity and space to vent, think, and change their minds. Because I think a lot of people, through storytelling, through discourse, can also change their minds. They can also see, oh, I've always been standing on the fence, or maybe I have these stereotypes that I've never thought about them, but actually they are racist. I thought it's a joke, but it's racism. And the last thing is is just also helping ourselves and others reassess our own prejudices and biases. Because I think most of us, we also have some stereotype thinking, some biases. And if we work on introspecting on our own, we will be able to teach the other how it works. And I think that is, I think that those are the ways that I could think of being anti-racist.
I mean, in summary of what you said, but before I get to the summary, I want to welcome again all our viewers. I welcome all of you listening from the YouTube page. Thank you so much for taking your time to have to listen to this very difficult and challenging conversations. We're talking about racism, and it's racism talk. Get your knee out of our necks. For many years now, the needs of many institutions, just like you said, and structural racism has affected the migrant and especially the African person. And we have internalized racism, even accepted it, and has destroyed us in one way or the other. And so today, just like you said, we need space. Yes, this is a platform for us all. This is a space where we can come and vent, a space where we can come and exchange, learn from one another, a space where we empower ourselves. We hope to heal from the wounds of racism, and after we have been healed, that we want to take actions, real actions, to become anti-racist, and of course to support the oppressors to be liberated as well. Because if they are also liberated, then they understand what that actually we all are human beings. So I welcome you all, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you. Keep sharing the link. Don't forget to subscribe to our Someone Global TV page on YouTube. Don't forget to join the Big Sompon Social Service Group. It's a place where you can also get all the support, and all of the videos and interviews we are doing is also going to be downloaded on these different spaces. So be a part of us. We want to learn together. We want to exchange. We want to grow. And just like Charity is saying again, we want to show solidarity. Charity Wairimo says solidarity is what we need, and to copy paste the economics of Europe and add our ancestry economics. Frey, what do you think?
Yeah, very good point. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Do you remember in our conversation we spoke about economic empowerment? Would you want to talk about a little about economic empowerment?
Yes. Actually, I always use the example of South Africa, apartheid South Africa. In apartheid South Africa, they divided people into two groups, whites and blacks. But then you have Asia. How are you gonna where are you gonna place them? So they
Yes.
had placed the Chinese on the side they are black, and Japanese they are
Oh,
white.
okay.
Uh,
Oh my God. Okay.
but the only difference between the two people was that Japanese people had the economy, they had the power. So
You
actually
see?
racism has also something to do with economic power.
Mm-hmm.
When you have economic power, and not many people have a problem with you because
Mm-hmm.
they need something from you.
That's
They know
true.
they can count on you. But when you don't
Mm-hmm.
have something to offer, you'll not even be invited onto the table.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think we should not see racism in a vacuum. Racism does not exist in a vacuum. There
Mm-hmm.
are a lot of other things that revolve around racism,
Mm-hmm.
being economic things, a lot of other things,
Mm-hmm.
strategic places where a person is, and all those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
So, but economy is one big thing. If you have the
Mm-hmm.
economy, people will
Mm-hmm.
listen to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, this is an amazing conversation, and the time is always going so quick and so fast. And we are almost getting to the end of our conversation. Frey, it's such a privilege to have you and to have you give us all this information, this knowledge. Now, we are having a few minutes ahead of us. I want you to take some time again to reflect and give us your, so to say, an advice to the people listening to you and those that are going to listen after this time, because after this many people also take time to listen to our speakers. And so I want you to have some few words to give to us. What would you say, how can we transform our stories to become economic power and of course fight against racism?
Um, I think, like we said earlier, is through working together, through helping each other, through giving information and tricks and tips about how to go about it. I think we have at this moment enough people all over who are successful, and
Mhm,
if we can come together and create forums, spaces where we can work together, we will be able
mhm,
to achieve it.
mhm. Thank you so very much. So I paraphrase to say, I think the most important thing is to be able to transform our own story, let
Yeah,
the story become transforming a positive one, using our
yeah,
skills to support one another, just like
yeah.
Charity said, uh, showing solidarity towards one another, and of course, using every possible means, strategies to work together, come together, and to over so that we can be able to overcome racism. We have one person say, I don't like racism, love from. We have Malik Umar Farouk says, I don't like racism, love from Pakistan. He's sending you his love to you. He's watching all the way from Pakistan, and he says, I hate racism. And he goes further. Another one says, huge respect for you women. So he's been following us and he's listening. So these are comments for you, Frey, to appreciate you for the work that you're doing. So respect. Thank you very much for turning up and accepting our invitation. And of course, we have learned a lot. I have learned a lot and I'm taking a lot home today. And um, one last question, Frey. Tell us before we are leaving now, would you mind sharing your story with us as days go by? You told us about transforming the story, and I'm very curious now to start up the platform of storytelling. So I want to have to get all the great women and men to tell us their story, how they made it, how the tricks they used, the adaptability skills they used, accountability skills they used. Would you mind telling us your story in my next program?
I don't know when, but I am open to it. But we can talk Later,
That's
we can see the when. I'm open to it, but we have to kike when to look when we can do that.
Of course, thank you very much. And we have another appreciation for you, Frey from Charity Warimo. She says, really appreciate this talk. Thank you so much, Freshia. This was tough, but you broke it very well. So thank you so much for breaking the hard pieces of the history to tell it, bringing it to this very in small pieces so that the people can get to understand. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to Frey. We call her Frey. You have been listening to her, and she has been our expert for today. And even though she says she's not an expert, I consider her to be an expert. Everyone who comes to my platform is an expert. And so we say thank you, Frey, for being here. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. Some people will have to pay for this knowledge, and thank you for giving that for us, giving this knowledge to us for free for a cup of coffee. Thank you so very much. So I want to appreciate you all, ladies and gentlemen, for being here today. We have been talking on racism and its effect on storytelling and history. Frey, do you want to say what before we close? Before we close?
Yes, I would like us to close with the words of Amelie Sandy's song. You got the words to change a nation. So if no one ever hears your story, how are we gonna learn your song? So please, let's not hide. We all have our experiences, and our experiences might change somebody, might change us, might change a nation.
Mhm. Wow, this was powerful. Thank you so much, Frey. Stay tuned, Frey. I'm meeting you back. Thank you so very much for being here. You have been our guest, Frey. I have really appreciate the time you took. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, we have come again to the end of our program, Racism Talk. Get your knee off our necks for many, many years, more than 400 years. The knees of some systems, the oppressors, has been on the neck of the oppressed and has destroyed a lot of things, has destroyed the history, has destroyed the story. When a people's history has been distorted, manipulated, then it affects their identity. When the history and the way stories are being told could also provoke hatred amongst the races, amongst the people. That's why I really appreciated the fact that Frey was here today, and I appreciate that you're here. This is your own possibility. We are now living in the transforming era, like Frey said. Transform your own story, make your story, and tell your own story. Be the master of your own story. Tell your story so that you can educate the oppressor, just like we can also educate the oppressed. And this is your time to make the change. Ladies and gentlemen, make use of all the platforms we have. Create your own space where there is no space. Create your own space using the diverse means, media, films, TV. Use your phone to create your own space if you have no space. I thank you all for watching. I thank you for being here today. Don't forget to share the link. Don't forget to share this page. Don't forget to subscribe. We are here because you are there. Thank you for being here, and thank you for always watching. I meet you again next week, same time, with another powerful conversation of racism and get your knees off our necks. God bless you. I have been your host, Vera Sompon. See you next time. Bye bye.